Hello and welcome to the Eagles Suck Season Preview Podcast. Steve, how much do the Eagles suck?
Do you know, we haven't had a proper intro to these for a while. And obviously I had some technical difficulties getting on, so I can see the two of you have had a little bit of time to prepare on this one.
Oh, hello. Welcome back to the Across the Pod podcast. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, here for our fourth instalment of our season predictions. And of course, I'm bringing back the troops. They've been for the last 3 years in our season predictions episode. Back for today is my good mates in Steve and Luke. Boys, how are things?
Really good, mate. Yeah, brilliant. That's the best intro ever, by the way.
That's entirely untrue. When we did the Double Doink podcast, that was the best intro ever.
Steve, I'm loving the hair, Steve. I'm not going to lie. It's you've grown out a bit since I last saw you. It's you're rocking it at the moment.
Loving the beard, mate. It's brilliant. It's superb.
So I was a little bit with technical difficulties there. You just disappeared on me. Andy has completely frozen.
He actually turned us off as soon as you said the Eagles sucked. I think that was what it was.
That's what it was, yeah.
I would if I was him too, right?
So, we are here to talk all things the 2024 NFL season. And as usual, we are bringing back our usual categories as we try and predict the NFL season. We've done it 3 years in a row, and each one of us has won each year, points-wise. I think Steve won the first year, I won 2022, and then Luke won last year's edition. So we are doing the normal categories where you can predict all 8 division winners, as well as ranking them from 4 to 1, as well as which team will have the first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. The 3 teams that will progress in both as of 3 wildcard teams in the AFC and the NFC, as well as our comeback player of the year prediction, surprise team, most disappointing team, offensive and defensive rookie of the year, offensive and defensive players of the year, MVP, AFC champions, NFC champions, and finally, the most important one, who wins Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. So we will start off, as we normally do, in the AFC, and it was first of all the usual division, AFC East, and this is where I will start due to my team being in this division, and it will come to no shock to any of you that I have the Dolphins winning the AFC East. I don't actually believe that I had us winning it the previous 2 years, but this year is our time because the Bills have lost weapons, and I realise that Dalton Kincaid will have a big year. I do think that he's going to be a guy that's going to really be Josh Allen's guy in this year, and I think they'll still finish second as a result. Of course, the Pats will finish bottom, and I've got the Jets finishing third. I just don't know at the moment what's happening with Aaron Rodgers, whether he'll be back to the player we all know, or whether he'll have any more injuries, or whether he'll just be a bit rusty, or even just show his age. So I've gone for Dolphins, Bills, Jets, Pats. I'm more confident of the Bills beat the Dolphins than the Jets. I just think that they will be in playoff contention, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think that they've done enough, I think, in the O-line especially. They've improved it, don't get me wrong. But I just don't know whether there's always talk about Aaron Rodgers. There's being a bit of a not the best atmosphere around the locker room at the moment. And I just think as well, due to the age of Rodgers, due to the fact that he may not come back to being the same player after having a year off, we just don't know. So at the moment, they're third, but give me 5 weeks into the season, they could be 5-0 easily. So that is my 4-1. Luke, we'll go to you first for your either 4-1 or 1-4, whichever you'd rather do, of your AFC's predictions.
Well, you're going to like me, Andy, actually, because I'm going to take the Dolphins to win the AFC.
Get in. That's perfect.
And the reason for that is I actually think they're the best offensive team by quite a distance. And we talked about this last year, that they're a great team. They just need to learn how to play in the cold. Like, go play in the fridge or go to practice somewhere up north, for goodness sake, so you can win a playoff game whenever it's cold somewhere. Anyway, and I'm sure that's what everyone says that's a Dolphins fan, because honestly, that was so frustrating. But I do think the Dolphins have got good balance on both sides. The only thing that counts against them was they had quite a lot of injuries, and a lot of it depends on how these big players come back and whether they're as good. But generally speaking, I think they're pretty well rounded. I think the roster's great. It's pretty stacked on offense. I like the way they play. So I think it's a bit of a 3-horse race. So I think it'll be pretty close, but I do think the Dolphins are going to win. I've got the Bills being second But I think it'll be really, really close. And obviously I hate Aaron Rodgers being a Bears fan. So, if I could have him finishing bottom, I would, but clearly not. But I do think that they will finish third, but they may still be in contention for the wild card because you just don't know what is going to happen. And the Jets have a pretty good roster, and particularly defensively as well. So anything could actually happen from that side of things. And the Patriots, well, I think no shocks here, but they could be the worst team in football this year. I don't think there's much question about that. There's only one or two other teams that could be candidates to beat them to that. But, that's kind of my prediction anyway. And it's interesting, but much really does depend on how the players that were injured last year come back. But I think they will. And I think the Finns will have just too much this year. And I think they will win.
I think that's, the biggest question mark going into the year, because two was answered the durability question marks. He was one of the only a few quarterbacks that lasted the whole of the season, played every game.
Yeah,
it was a very injury hit year for quarterbacks in the NFL. But the big thing is winning the big games, because we know the talent's there, and we've got a window now because Hill, hinted at retiring next year. Ramsey's not only getting younger.
Yeah.
We don't know whether Chubb will come back the same players. The window's there, but the biggest thing for me, we will be, there's no doubt, unless injury bug kicks in, we will be a team that will be competing to make a playoff place. Yes. Or even they could even win a playoff game this year, which I hope this year is the year. But yeah, it's a big game. I'm thinking down the stretch because we've avoided Buffalo in the cold in December. We're playing them November 3rd on the road, as well as playing them at home week 2. But I'm looking at our last few games down the stretch. We've got the Raiders in week 11, Patriots week 12. That's great. But after that, we've got Packers on the road on Thanksgiving, the Jets at home, Texans on the road, 49ers at home, Browns on the road, Jets on the road. That is, I think there's only a few teams that have got a worse down the stretch schedule than us. That is horrendously tough schedule. I mean, all those teams I've just mentioned will be making the playoffs or just on the outskirts. I think they'll all be at least contenders, or at least seen as in the start of the year. So for me, that's one thing we've got to overcome. I think if we can beat the Bills in week 9 on the road, or we can beat the Niners or beat the Browns, that will be our biggest test. If we can come out of that game with a win, I think that will almost end all previous chat about it. And Steve isn't sure about that, but you think about John Madden and Peyton Manning, both of them had these question marks. What did they overcome it? Madden wins Super Bowl, Peyton wins one, and he wins another one a few years later. So for me, I think it's that mental block. Once you win that first playoff game or that first game against a good team, then I think that could be the one that changes it. So I think, this year is a really important year. And I do believe that this will be our year that we finally win our first AFC East in 2008. Steve, you gave a lot of thoughts there on camera, but not verbally. Your take on the AFC East and your rankings from 1 to 4 or 4 to 1.
I'll give you the rankings, then I'll give you the thoughts. Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Patriots. Bills, still by far on the ground the best running team in that division. Gives them the opportunity to air the ball out when Allen gets himself going. Have the best quarterback in the division, and Tua might have got his big contract, but he's still the second best quarterback in that division, always has been. The loss of Stephon Diggs actually will be a positive. Diggs is one of these there's a lot of ego around him. Yeah, there's a lot of talent, but at the same time, not the best team player. And I actually think his departure will help the team dynamic in Buffalo. It will certainly let the younger players who are coming through, it will give them more confidence, and it will give them more chance to connect with the quarterback going forward. The Dolphins.
Here we go.
I genuinely like Devon A-Chain. I think he's a fantastic runner. I think he's great he's that old school get the head down and power his way through. He's got the build, he's got the speed, he's got the agility. We could be talking about him, in 3-4 seasons time, in the same breath as we used to talk like peak Dalvin Cook or peak Adrian Peterson. But right now, he needs an O-line. And the one thing I didn't see from the Dolphins in the summer and in the draft and everything else was put those guys in place to get a better O-line. And I think because you had that big game against the Broncos last year, I think that filled a lot of people with a little bit of confidence for players and saying that they're better than they actually are. And I think you got brought back down to earth. I haven't seen anything in the Dolphins preseason or in the drafting or even in free agency that tells me that they've improved to the point where they should be division winners. I still think they'll make the wild card. I still think you'll win 11 games, but I don't think you'll beat Buffalo. And that, obviously, in that division, because really you're the only two teams in that division. Luke put it nicely. Yes, he hates Aaron Rodgers because, he's the history with the Bears. But the point of the matter is, Aaron Rodgers is not the same quarterback that Aaron Rodgers was in Green Bay. And this season, Aaron Rodgers he'll be a shadow of the guy he used to be in Green Bay. He's at Peyton Manning at the Broncos in the season he won the Super Bowl level. There's not a lot of mobility. There's still that range of passing. There isn't that much strength in the arm. So the Jets need people around him who are better to to take, especially in short yardage situations where Rodgers has a tendency to just play hero ball. He's got guys there that can play short yardage situations, but he's not going to. He's going to look for 40-yard bombs to Mike Williams every single time he's on the field. It's just, so the Jets have a quarterback problem, and it's an expensive quarterback problem. The Pats, now, I like what the Pats did in the offseason. I like the rookies they brought in. I like that they hit full reset and said, you know what, we are not competitive. We probably won't be competitive for a few years. Let's let the veterans go out. Let's sort our cap space, and let's bring in young guys with potential and ability. I think the guy you'll probably see from the Patriots, for me, who this season will really, really shine out, will be Demario Douglas. I think with a new quarterback and a new, younger team, he will show up quickly as not only their number one wideout, but their number one guy, because there's not a lot of others on that team that are have the potential to move straight into kind of WR1, RB1, T1, contention. But yeah, the Dolphins, you still lack that one key component, and it's hard to put my finger on it from watching preseason and watching the guys you brought in. Just, they'll be a lot of fun to watch. They'll be one of the highest scoring teams in football, but you won't beat the Bills. So again, Bills, Dolphins,
for you.
Bills, Smith, Dolphins, Jets, Patriots.
I actually can I just say that I think they will, and the reason I think they will is I don't think the Bills have got the same set of receivers anymore. They don't have a clear WR1 in my head, anyway, at least. And I think it's a very different sort of offensive setup to what they had. And I don't buy that they're the best running team. I don't actually. I just don't see it. So I think they might struggle a bit more than you think, or certainly at least struggle to be the top team. That's just my view on it. Andy, what do you think?
I think I said before, I do think Kincaid's going to be the guy. They'll use him like a Kelsey or Gronk. I think that will be, he, for me, showed great signs last year. He's going to be, one of the best tight ends in the league. And I think that might be what they go with. And then I think Khalil Shakir is a really underrated back. And I think, receiver. And I think James Cook is an excellent back. But I'm going to say one thing about the Dolphins. Last 2 years especially, if we don't get the ball to Hill, don't get it to Waddle, who are we throwing it to?
Yeah.
No one that good. I mean, I loved Gesicki, but he wasn't used anywhere near as he should have done in McDaniel's first season before he got let go. And I do feel like, even though he's missing the first 6 games, I think OBJ coming in will be a great, as a WR3, as not first choice, second choice, as your third choice receiver, that's a good option to have. And Jonnu Smith, who I think was great with the Titans, hasn't really done it since. And I think that could be the difference. Having that third guy to throw to could be the difference between winning games and losing games. Having both A-Chain and Mostert healthy, I think that's been an issue last year as well. I can't think of many games where they were both actually together on the same field. There was always one or the other were injured. And then the O-line, I think if everyone stays healthy, it's not too bad. I think the issue we had last year was the fact that we kept getting guys injured. I think that's been the biggest problem as well. So I think you got Armstead left tackle, you got Austin Jackson on the right tackle. Austin Jackson improved so much last season. If you get them two healthy, it's a great option to tackle. And in guard, you've got Robert Jones, I think is okay, not amazing, not terrible guard. I think Eichenberg, he's questionable. But I like Aaron Brewer, and he's got a lot. He can play multiple positions on the line. He's quite versatile. So I think the O-line, if everyone stays healthy, that line stays as they are, as a 5, then it'd be fine. I think last year we weren't even that bad on the O-line. I think it's just when the injuries kicked in, that's when the problem started. And I do think Connor Williams was a big part of that, and him not being there now will be a big thing. But yeah, I think this year I think this year, if we're going to win any year the AFC East, I think this year is the year because we've got a perfect chance where the Bills. We just don't know how they'll cope without those receivers. But yeah, we'll move on because I realise we've got 7 more divisions to go. We are going to head to the AFC North next, which is back to Steve on this one first for your rankings of the AFC North teams.
I don't know. It's always for me the most competitive division in the AFC. It's very hard sometimes to look beyond, the Ravens winning that division each year for the simple fact that Lamar Jackson can just turn anything around. I don't know. My big question with that division has always been how fit is Joe Burrow? Because what we saw last season was an injured Joe Burrow, and then he came back and he played when he clearly still wasn't 100%, and he was trash. And you can have great receivers around him, but if your QB is not 100%, he's not 100%. Now, he's coming out with the old Eminem haircut this year. I think that's been that is what kind of defines the Bengals preseason for me, is that the only thing people have talked about is, are you paying Jamar Chase, and does Joe Burrow have a new haircut? They haven't really talked about anything else in the team. Yeah, and that's always a worry, because like when you're looking at it from the outside, you're saying, I want to be hearing this player came out of the team and he's got a really good connection in preseason with the quarterback. He's really good in practice. He's fit, he's healthy. We don't hear any of that come out of the Bengals camp. And that's what always says to me, this isn't a team that's going to win the division. And then I look across at the Ravens, and it's like the Ravens are just like, yep, everything we did last year we're doing exactly the same, but better. Okay, you know what? The only thing that ever puzzles me with the Ravens is who their running game is going to be. And they've lost a couple of their backs this year, and they've gone out free agency. But again, they've replaced those, I think, quite adequately, because their number one running back is Lamar Jackson. So everything else is just running back by committee for me. So
I think you've forgotten about one man who's come in. One of my favourite guys, Derrick Henry, of course, is the Ravens, and that for me is a massive addition.
Listen, Luke will tell you. Our mate Paul is a massive Titans fan, and he was gutted to see Henry leave. Yeah. But I think everyone can agree Henry in the last season was slowing down, right? And I think he's picked the right time to move and get his last big contract. I don't think we will see that explosive King Henry that goes 1,500 yards a season for like 15 touchdowns that we've been looking at for the last 5 years. I think we will see, straight ahead, smash mouth, but we won't see as many yards. We'll see him taking out the game on third downs quite often, and we'll see him kind of used as a first and second down back, and then they'll kind of look at where they are on the field before deciding if he's doing all three. He will get used sparingly. I think they've got an excellent head coach there who understands that, especially with veteran players, sometimes just throwing them in for every single play because of the best choice isn't necessarily best for the team.
They won't need to. This is the unique thing about the Ravens' offense, really, and the scheme, is they won't need to use Henry in every single play. So it's perfect for him as a veteran. But it does give them a really good option there. And I think that's the thing that will prolong his career. And in many ways, it's actually the perfect landing place for him, because that not only are they a contender, but they don't need to use him every single down because they've got so much variation. And if you've got him and Lamar, then that creates a whole problem for the defensive side, because they think, right, who do we cover? Where are they going to go? And before that's even thinking about them, play actioning and throwing to, wide receivers and stuff like that. So, or tight ends, Mark Andrews, for instance. So I just think it's a good place for them. But I take your point entirely. But I do think it's actually the best possible landing place for Derrick Henry.
I'd ask both of you, because my big concern with the Ravens here is, will Rashad Bateman stay fit, and will he be that kind of WR2 they need? Because it's clear from the last season that Zay Flowers is like their guy. The guy that, like, when Lamar's scanning the field, that's who he's looking for first. But Bateman's been there for like 2 or 3 seasons, and I've always looked at him and went, there's all the potential there, but he doesn't stay fit. It's not so much Lamar overthrows him. It's just I don't think his route running is as good as it could be. But you'd think this has got to be a season where he breaks out, because if he doesn't, this could theoretically be a season where they just say, like, let's just cut our losses and go and get someone else.
Yeah, I think Bateman personally has not been anywhere near the guy we all thought, and I just don't feel that he's going to really get the chance, because you've got Zay Flowers there. you've obviously got Henry and Lamar Jackson who's going to be the main sort of guys. I just don't think. I think he'll maybe EWR2, EWR3, but I just don't think he'll get anywhere near the kind of target because they're going to predominantly use Zay Flowers. They're going to use Derek Henry. They're going to use Lamar Jackson running plays. I just don't feel like, I don't personally feel like he has proved enough to me that he can do better with more players around him that are better than him. So I just don't feel he is the guy. So Steve, let's get your ranking from 1 to 4. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so it would definitely be the Ravens still to win the division. And then I go to like 2, 3, 4, and I'm like, do I want to give the Bengals that second place? Yes, but only because Deshaun Watson, I know he's restructured his contract, but Deshaun Watson is not the guy in Cleveland that he was in Houston and probably never will be. The Steelers have two quarterbacks who, look, what do you think about Justin Fields this season?
He's not playing until about week 6.
He's not playing. It's like they've got two guys who are like both are very much kind of playing for their careers, and both of them are not very good to start with.
He'll play about week 6 when they realise Russell's garbage these days, and then they'll develop a new running game around him, and it'll be different. So that'll be what happens.
The only thing the Steelers have going for them is the same thing I've gone for them every season, and that's Mike Tomlin. When you've got a head coach like that, your winning seasons are almost guaranteed. He's had how many seasons in a row now? Has he had a winning record? Something ridiculous.
17. I think he came 2008. I think he became head coach or something like that. It was.
They always kind of scrape that kind of 9-8, or 8-8 back when it was. 16 games.
Yeah.
And for me, that will actually put the Steelers into 3rd this season. The Browns are going to finish last. So it's Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Browns.
My goodness, that's a controversial call, by the way.
Well, I would have put the Browns in 3rd, but what it was, obviously, Nick Chubb has been put back onto PUP for the first 4 weeks of the season. 4, 6. And we all said at the time when we saw his injury last year, we weren't even sure he could play football again, let alone come back, at the same level. And I think the fact they put him onto that indicates that he's not fully healed, or when they've tried him, when they've let him train, when they've let him run, they've looked at him and went, he is not the same guy. So for me, that damages the Browns running game considerably, and puts the Browns for me down to 4th.
Luke, what's your ranking?
Well, I'm actually going to go with the Ravens, Bengals. I think I'm going to go Browns, Steelers. Because I think the Steelers are going to run out of gas, and I just think that what their strategy and I do kind of applaud their strategy. I think they made a brave decision to move on from the QB and from Kenny Pickett, because he tried his best but just was not good enough. I'm not sure that Russell Wilson was the best choice, because I think his best days are well behind him, and I think they're going to find that out within the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. I think getting Justin Fields, on the other hand, is a bit of a steal. I like Justin Fields. My only concern on him was that any mobile quarterback like that, there's only so many hits they can take, and it's a big risk to you. But actually, I have liked him throughout my time, and although I was sad to see him go, and I'm glad, obviously, Caleb Williams is with us now. I do think he'll end up being the QB1 in Pittsburgh, but I think they'll lose a few games to start with, just because Wilson will not be good. I don't care what anyone says. I'd be surprised if he's good anymore. He was garbage in the Broncos, so he's not going to suddenly.
I'm going to say, sorry to interrupt you there, Luke. I'm going to say that in his second season at Broncos, bear in mind he only played 15 games as well, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. So I think there's still something there. I don't think he's going to be, MVP candidate like he was, in previous years, where everyone was saying, why hasn't he got a vote yet for the MVP? But I think he'll be with a much more competent front office and just coaching that system all round. I do feel like
maybe,
on him a little bit.
Maybe, but they don't have the personnel, the Steelers. That's the problem. That they're not a good enough roster altogether. Not really. I don't see it. I just don't see it. I think that they this could be, one of the years where they have a losing record overall. That's just my instinct on it. I just don't see it. I don't think they'll be the worst team in football, but I don't think it'll be a successful season for them, in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean, I actually I would love to put them as my surprise team, because they are a team that I think if you can win 9-10 games and make the playoffs with Mason Rudolph as your quarterback or Kenny Pickett as a two in your room last year, you can surely make it more than that with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. But I'm looking at, I've been looking at their schedule, and from week 11 to week 18, I mentioned it before in the Steelers season preview. From week 11 to 18, they've got the Ravens at home, the Browns on the road, Bengals on the road, Browns at home, Eagles on the road, Ravens on the road, Chiefs at home, Bengals on the at home. So I do feel like, whilst I still think they'll be around about the 8th, 7th, 9th sort of seeding in the AFC, I just feel like that stretch of games is going to really put them, in my opinion, 3rd place in the division. So I just feel like that is, for any team, just an incredibly tough run of games. So I've got, same as Steve, I've got Ravens and Bengals and Steelers and Browns. Exactly same as Steve. Don't trust Deshaun Watson anymore, and we don't know about Nick Chubb. And as good as their defense is, I think, Steelers have TJ Watt. The Ravens have a good defense. They always have. So they're a good defensive team in a good defensive division. So I think if they were in maybe the AFC South, you could maybe look at it, go, maybe even NFC South. You could go, okay, defense might win in games. Defense might get them over the edge of winning the division. But I just think it's such a tough division to win. I don't think that'll be enough. Having a good defense when your offense isn't capable, that's going to ultimately, cost them. But we will move on to our 3rd division, which is the AFC South, which is going to be with Luke first. So, Luke, give us your rankings in that division.
The AFC South actually is interesting. I think the Texans win it. I think they've shown already that they've got enough, and they've added, a lot more talent there, and clearly they're using their window to the best effect, which is great to see. It'll be interesting to see how the Colts do with Richardson back. I'm not sure. I think Richardson has potential, as I say later, to potentially, be more than he is, but it's difficult to know. But I do think the Jaguars will put them to 2nd place, but I think it'll be close between them and the Colts. And then I think the Titans finish bottom. I just don't see them being that good this year. They really don't have the talent. And sorry, Paul, if you're listening, but it's just the Titans are going to have a bad year this year. You won't be the worst team in football, but you're going to be in the top 5 picks for sure. I think almost certainly, because you're just not going to do very well at all, unfortunately. So that's it. So it's the Texans, Jags, Colts, Titans is my prediction.
Yeah, that's fair. I think with the Titans, I do feel like they'll have their moments. You think about the comeback win last year against ourselves, or the game against the Falcons. I think there's been moments where I've seen this team could do something, but I just think that without Derrick Henry there now, even though they got TJ Spears and Tony Pollard, I think there's a 1-2 that's really good. And I know the head coach did a lot of wonders with Joe Burrow. There's a big difference between being a coordinator and a head coach, and he hasn't yet done it. So I've gone for Titans 4th as well for those reasons alone. I've gone for Jags 3rd. I just feel like the end of the season last year worried me, and I do think Doug Peterson, they've also got an equally tough schedule. I think the whole division's actually got a very tough schedule this year, and I just think the Jags, it's not so much them getting worse. I think it's more the teams around them getting better. That's their issue. I think the Jags won the division a couple of years ago, but then Texans went out and got CJ Stroud. The Colts went out and got Anthony Richardson, and I think it's overall the teams around them are just getting better, and they're just sort of stagnating at the same sort of level. So I'm going for the Jags 3rd, and then I'm going for the Texans to win it with the Colts 2nd. I think Stroud is just, I think he's just at a different level now. And I do feel like he is, we ranked him, I think I did anyway, 5th in my quarterback rankings list after just 1 year. So it just shows how much I rate him. So yeah, I'm going to give Texans the win. And I think the Colts, I think, are going to be good as well. And I think, yeah, it's going to be a good division. I think it's been a division in years gone by where it's been a bit clunky, been a bit sort of a weird sort of division. But this year, you got, I think, 3 playoff contenders there. And I think ultimately, yeah, that's where I'm going to rank those 4 teams in the division. And then we'll finally go ahead to Steve for your division rankings.
Yeah, I'll go bottom to top. I agree with both of you. It's one of those. The Titans are for me in rebuild now. Ever since Vrabel left, and then Henry's gone afterwards. That's a team that needs to rebuild and find its identity again.
Definitely.
Especially quarterback. I watched Will Levis a few times last season. I know he'll get the chance this year, but nothing he did in his rookie year said to me he'll be anything more than a kind of like mid-range journeyman quarterback. There was nothing he did that made me say he has that ability to pull out that special, play when the team absolutely needs it. And if that's your guy under center, you're struggling before you even set foot on a field. I absolutely agree with both of you. I love the Pollard and Spears 1-2 combination, but it's not Derrick Henry. And it's not. It's like two mid-range quarterbacks running by committee. Spears in particular, we watched him last year when he played at Tottenham, and I love his ability to break tackles. I love his ability to get around the outside. He's a very mobile, agile running back. And Pollard, yeah, I want to see good things about Pollard, but he came from the Cowboys, so yeah, screw Tony Pollard. They've got, they've still got a decent wide receiving core. D-Hop's out there. He took the money and now he's got Will Mayonnaise Levis throwing to him. Yeah, I'm guessing that's not what you thought he was going to have when he signed the contract. So it's one of those. The Titans they'll be relying on the D, and the D has lost a lot of key players over the last couple of seasons, and I haven't seen them replaced. So yeah, they'll finish bottom. The Colts will finish third. I like Richardson. Before he went down last season, he did look very mobile, very accurate. He did look like a kind of like taller, maybe not quite strong version of Jalen Hurts, which obviously I have a lot of experience of watching. It's about their receiving core for me. Pittman he's been there for like 3-4 years, and he's always been that there or thereabouts guy. I don't see him. Yeah, you just don't see him in WR1 territory, do you? You always see him as that guy who's kind of there or thereabouts.
Yeah, it's that sort of. You probably put him in. I reckon if you ranked every single wide receiver one from 1 to 32, I reckon he'd be about 25th, 24th in that. I think he's sort of just that sort of just below elite. I think he's good, but I don't know whether he's very good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. He's great for fantasy, amazing for fantasy to get all the targets. But I think he's a good receiver, and I think he's just about a wide receiver one. But he'd be an amazing wide receiver too. He'd be so good.
Yeah. There's nothing about that Colts offense that if I'm coming in there as an opposing defense scares me. There's nothing. As long as I can contain Richardson when he starts scrambling, and I make sure there's double coverage around Pittman, I look at everything else and I say, no, I'm good here. I'm pretty good. And that's why for me, the Colts finishing third. The Jags are second. The Jags have slowly but surely improved. I love their defense. I've always loved the Jags defense. I think their pass rush is the best in the division. But again, Trevor's there, and Trevor is one of those. He's a solid quarterback. He will always be there. He'll be above journeyman status, but below elite status, probably for the rest of his career. He's got his big contract. He's been paid. He's got weapons. They change them around every season. If you remember a couple of years ago when they brought in like 6 wide receivers, a few of them have gone this year. So I think he's decided which ones he likes and which ones he doesn't, which ones he's got a connection with. Their run game has Travis Etienne, who I freaking love to watch. Luke will remember a few seasons ago. You might remember as well, Andy. We went to watch the Broncos Jags at Wembley. And Etienne was just a handful. And every time I watch tape on him, he's a handful. No defense quite has a handle on him. And when you've got that, you've got a good quarterback in Trevor, and you've got some very good deep field threats, and Evan Ingram running short for you from tight end. That team they won't win the division, but it will be very close this season. I can see the Jags getting 11 wins and definitely making the wild card. Which then brings us to the Texans. We've gone over everything about the Texans that we think is great. Tank Dell, I think, is probably, before his injury last season, to me, actually looked like the best of the wide receiving core there, which is quite incredible considering who else you've got there. Stroud broke all the records I can think of, exceeded everybody's expectations. They've got a running back by committee, which has, and Dameon Pierce I still like. I still just maybe think he'll never quite be that guy. but as long as he's got guys around him so he doesn't have to run everybody down, and good coaching, yeah, fantastic. And of course their defense, which 2 seasons ago, maybe 3 seasons ago, we looked at and said was probably the worst in the league, turned itself around last year, improved immeasurably in free agency and in the draft this year, and I think will be the best in the division and very possibly one of the top 3 in the AFC.
Fair enough. I can't really argue with that. I've gone for a slightly different to you guys. I've gone for I've already given my division rankings. Apologies. Moving on to the AFC West. it's this...
Oh, I've already done this bit, yeah.
Oh God! Well, I think it's stressful again. Trying to get the waiters tickets has just fried my head. But AFC West, easiest division win to call out of all of them. Chiefs, I think they're going to be. They are the current dynasty. They are the dynasty of the 2020s, and there'll be. I think there's no real competition around them. I don't think any of the 3 teams in that division are going to run it even close. I've gone for the Chargers second because I think Harbaugh is best coach of the 3, and I do feel like even though I think they're going to go tightly run heavy, and I wouldn't trust any of their receivers or even Herbert on fantasy football. I do think they're going to go a lot run heavy sort of football, and I think that there'll be some teething problems. But I think this will be the biggest gap between first and second in any of the 8 divisions. I think they'll win the division by week 15. There'll be 3 or 4 wins clear of second place. So I think Chargers will be second. They'll be nowhere near competing. They'll probably be like a 7-8 win team. But I think that Harbaugh alone is going to win them a few games. And then I've gone for the Raiders third, even though I don't know whether to trust Pierce because it was an interim sort of honeymoon period sort of era, whether he can do it as a full-time head coach. It's a whole different ball game. And then the Broncos fourth, I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the entire division at the conference. And I think Bo Nix, we can't base on that one preseason game if he's going to be good or not. You really can't. And I don't know whether Sean Payton's still got it. He seems very set in his ways. So for me, yeah, the Broncos are going to be fourth. And I think the Raiders will be third. I think it'll be close between them and Broncos for fourth place and third place. And I think it's fair, actually. I think second place to fourth place will be quite a tight one. But yeah, I just think the Broncos all around haven't done enough, and they've stunk the place out with a better quarterback than what they got now. So for me, that is where I see the AFC West. But Luke, over to you for your ranking of the AFC West.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to kind of almost mirror what you say. I mean, the Chiefs are almost certain to win it, barring any major disasters on their side. And I think the Chargers have upgraded the coaching side of things. They have lost key personnel, so I think things will be a bit different, but I think they'll probably have enough in their tank to finish second in the division. The Raiders, it's hard to see how they'll do, but I just don't think they've got enough talent. I honestly don't think they've got enough talent, and I think I don't see it, but I think they'll finish ahead of the Broncos, and I think the Broncos could be in a competition for the number 1 pick. I don't think they will be. I think the Pats will beat them to it, but I think the Broncos are going to be stinking. Sorry, Chris, again, if you're listening to this as well, because our friends, Chris is a Broncos fan, but they are going to stink this year. And Bo Nix might look really good, but he's going to find it hard to win, to be honest. But, the foundations at least are there, and that might not be a bad thing for the Broncos fans.
Yeah, I think given 5 years, might be saying something different, but I just don't think this year, particularly, they're going to be any great shakes.
Yeah.
Steve, finally for you, your rankings of the AFC West teams.
Okay, so I am going to... Obviously, I'm going to take the Chiefs to win, because we all took the Chiefs to win, because in terms of quality, they sit above the other 3. I'll also quite happily predict this will be the division where no team makes the wild card. Okay, almost certainly. There are 3 bad teams here. But it's a question of how bad and who earns what. Now, for me, finishing second is probably going to be the Broncos. I like what they've done in the off-season. I do have faith in Peyton, while you guys don't. I think they lost Jerry Judy last season, who was he was one of those all-talent but problematic within the team players. And I think that'll give Cortland Sutton a chance to properly prove himself as a WR1, which I think he is. I think he has the natural talent to do so. But yeah, it's then down to, they've got a good running back by committee. I love Javonte Williams. He will probably, for me, kind of explode as the lead back there this year. Bo Nix is to me, he reminds me a lot of Fields in season 1 at the Bears. I think that's the kind of impact he's going to have. I would have liked to have seen him start the season on the bench with a more experienced quarterback ahead of him, but it's not going to happen. So you're just going to throw him at the deep end. I pretty much, on a sink or swim basis, I think he swims. I think he's got the talent around him that, he gets the ball downfield. He gets himself moving. He gets a little bit of kind of connection with his play, the wide receivers especially. And I can see the Broncos finishing second. The Raiders will finish third. My big concern with the Raiders isn't the talent they have on offense, it's the quarterback situation. Because who's quarterback in the Raiders?
Gardner Minshew. And I love Gardner Minshew. Bit of Minshew mania. Greatest thing to watch. But as everyone says, and I've obviously seen him when he's playing the Eagles, Minshew is hot and cold. He will start out fantastically, and then he will dip. And then it's very hard once he dips to get back into that top level. I think if he dips, they'll have to replace him and put him on the sidelines for a couple of days, a couple of games to get his confidence back and then bring him back in. That would mean playing Garoppolo. Oh, hang on, no, they released Garoppolo, didn't they? No, Garoppolo's at the Rams.
Yeah, at the Rams, yeah. So who's backing up Minshew?
Aidan O'Connell.
O'Connell. Yeah. I can see Luke sitting there kind of covering his mouth going, yeah, Aidan O'Connell. There's just no quality at quarterback. And, if you don't have quality quarterback, what you need to have is leadership at quarterback. Minshew isn't that guy. And whilst you do have some great talent there, Brock Bowers was a superb draft pick. Devontae Adams is Devontae Adams, who I think to this day is still regretting leaving Green Bay. Zamir White will get his chance at running back this year, now that Josh Jacobs has moved on. Luke and I had a conversation about Zamir White a couple of seasons ago in his rookie season because we were looking at trading back and forth for him in fantasy. And I think kind of neither of us would look at the price as being particularly significant because we genuinely didn't know what to make of him. Yeah. And I think even now in his third season, we still don't know what to make of him. So.
I've got 2 questions for you, actually, very quickly before we move on. So the first one is, do you agree with me that you think that Gardner Minshew could be the new Ryan Fitzpatrick? He could be the new Amish Ryan.
No, he's already the new Fitzpatrick. He is Fitzpatrick 2.0.
I think so.
Yeah, he has everything Fitzpatrick does, but again, he has the Fitzpatrick level of consistency, he has Fitzpatrick level of style, he has the Fitzpatrick sense of humor, and he's just, he's a really likable guy like Fitzpatrick. So yes, I completely agree with you on that. What's your second question?
And the second question is much more fundamental for the Raiders, and that is, do you trade Devontae Adams or not? I think if you really want to get value for him, you trade him. Because you're not going to win this. You're not going to win. You might as well trade him.
My thoughts on Adams would be pretty straightforward in that that is a huge contract for a veteran wide receiver. And you're not going to trade him at that value and get anything significant. And not a lot of teams have the cap room to take on a player at that size who are contenders. The teams who are contenders have things absolutely nailed down. So if you're going to trade him, you trade him to someone who's not a contender, which is what he did when he left the Packers to go to the Raiders. The Raiders weren't contenders at the time. He went for the money. He's going to sit it out unless you absolutely force him out. So, no, he'll still get 1,000 yards this season, purely because it's just natural talent. There'll be a lot of times when Minshew's looking around or O'Connell's looking around and they're like, there's nothing out there. Well, Devontae Adams is in there somewhere. Off it goes. The ball will get launched.
Cap space, though. I mean, there's some teams that have quite a bit of cap space left for this year. That could potentially do something or rearrange things. I mean, the Lions could do it, for instance. The Browns even might do it. The Browns have got plenty of cap space.
We're talking about contenders, though.
No, but they could, push themselves into being contenders with a signing like him.
Not with that man at quarterback. I think that's
maybe
if
not.
If they hadn't just paid him, I would actually have said the Cowboys would have been a great landing spot for Adams. Because there's a team that would contend straight away. And he would improve. Because if you ask me, do I want Brandon Cooks or Devontae Adams, it's not even a question.
The Cowboys have their own problems cap-wise. I mean, they've got to pay, they've obviously paid, one of their guys, but they've got our two guys to pay and not enough space to pay both of them.
Yeah,
and that's
it.
Problem,
So no, they won't trade him. But yeah, and then at the bottom is the Chargers. Now, the Chargers lost, for me, everything that made their offense good last year. No Mike Williams, no Keenan Allen, an injured Justin Herbert, no Austin Eckler. It's like, and what they've replaced it with, it's just not up to standard. Is Gus Edwards an RB1 to you? To anyone? No,
not at all.
No. And they have drafted okay. I do like the look of it's Lad McConkey, isn't it? They were drafted.
Yeah.
And I do like the look of him pre-season, but yeah, just Herbert's there with he's got plantar issues with his foot, which means he may not start week 1. Very possibly he may not start for like the first 3 to 4 weeks, which means Taylor Heineke's under center. Yeah. So yeah, again, from an NFC East perspective, I'm like, I have experience with Taylor Heineke, and Taylor Heineke is not a good quarterback. Yeah, so the Chargers don't have anything going for them on offense this year, so they're going to have to rely so heavily on their defense. They don't have a great schedule either. They have some really, really tough games this year, and I will see them dropping back into that kind of level where when I first started doing podcasts, which is good 8 to 9 years ago, the Chargers were a joke, and I think I can see them dropping back into that. Herbert or no Herbert, the team is going to struggle this year.
Well, I mentioned actually in an old episode when me and Aaron Fletcher from Sleep at Work picked our dream Super Bowls, and I talked about how my girlfriend was choosing her NFL team. She has chosen a team, and it is the Chargers. So. Yeah, I've warned her about the pain and suffering she's going to get as a result of that. But yeah, she's going to have a keen eye on how they do this year.
They play in a lovely stadium. That's the most positive thing I can say about them.
This is coming as some surprise. I mentioned it on a podcast I went on as a guest on, the Highway Sports podcast. I think so far it's the most overrated stadium in the whole league. When I went there, it was nowhere near how it looked on TV at all. Atmosphere was dead. It just felt a bit soulless and a bit too commercialized. I think you go to even AT&T very commercialized, but you felt you've got a bit of character there. And obviously things like Lambeau Field, Arrowhead, even Soldier Field have got that character. But I just felt like so far it was such an underwhelming season. I've got to thank Tyler because he got me tickets for free, and I can't thank him enough for that. But I just felt like, it did, for a lot of it, I felt very underwhelmed by so far. But
was it a Chargers game you went to see?
Yeah, Chargers Dolphins when it was at.
This absolutely explains the complete lack of atmosphere. Not the stadium's fault. It's Chargers fans.
Very good point.
I mean, you watched the Super Bowl. You watched the Super Bowl at the stadium, and there was atmosphere, and it was a great atmosphere, and it's a well-built stadium. But it is Chargers fans. They are the most dull, dire, uncompetitive fan base in the league. No, and the fact that there are only 6 of them is the other thing.
There's one that's worse. Atlanta Falcons fans, and I think they got a reputation as being terrible in terms of you get a lot of empty seats. When I was there, you saw a lot more Chargers fans and Falcons fans because that's who they played. And I just felt like the Falcons was again, that was a great stadium. I loved it there, but the fans weren't exactly that supportive. But also, you've got the diehard fans. There's plenty of fans that are there that are diehard, and I saw plenty when I saw them play on the road against teams. But that they have got, I think, quite a reputation from ex-players and other people who've done podcasts that have said the same thing, that the Falcons fans. I think even Amon Rasen Brown said it literally the other day. He's talking to Devontae Adams, and he's saying that they had the worst atmosphere because no one turned up.
They're quiet. They're just quiet.
We are going to head now to the only division of the whole 8, which has a Super Bowl winner in all 4 teams in the NFC East, which of course is where Steve's team, the Eagles, reside. So, Steve, over to you for your ranking of the NFC East.
All right, I'll go bottom to top because bottom is a really, really easy pick, and that's the Giants. We talked earlier about teams like the Titans. We were saying on the Pats and saying, these could be the teams with the worst record in football. You haven't even looked at the Giants on this. That is a dysfunctional mess of a team. Their back office is terrible. Their front office is terrible. Their quarterback is in a massive contract, despite being probably one of the worst of the 32 quarterbacks in the league. I don't even know where to start on that team. There's nothing positive about it. They got Malik Neighbors in the draft, who I think in 2 seasons, even if he kind of shows out OBJ style, is still going to want out of there. There's nothing in the run game. There's nothing in the passing game. There's nothing in the defense. There's no pass rush. The secondary is terrible. They are going to get mauled even by teams like the Commanders, who are in a complete rebuild. Because the Giants, for some reason, I don't understand why, the Giants refuse to just accept that the situation they're in requires a complete rebuild. And they need to just gut the team, gut the cap space, go full rookie, bring in some free agents, just get you through a season or 2, and get yourself back into contention. Because if you remember a couple of years ago, the Giants actually made the wild card. I remember we beat them in a wild card, but they were just, that team had Saquon. It had Dayball in his first season, kind of motivating players who had underperformed. But again, those players aren't there anymore. And the players who are still there just seem to be the ones that are on big contracts, just picking up the paycheck each week. I don't see the passion in this Giants team that I've seen in Giants teams gone by. I don't fear this Giants team as an Eagles fan the way we have in seasons gone by. It's just a very, very, it's a hot mess. And then in the third, we'll have the Commanders. Now, the Commanders, I said, are in a rebuild, and they are in a rebuild. But during the rebuild, they've gone into free agency and said, we can have that. It's not going to cost us much. It's going to improve on what we had. We're going out. We're going to get a lot of rookies in the draft. They got McCaffrey at wide receiver. They've got, what is his name? Their quarterback, the rookie.
Jaden Daniels.
And pre-season they've actually looked like a pretty decent combination. I like the attitude that comes out of the Commanders since the takeover. It's like they've got that weight lifted off their shoulders since the Snyder era ended. We saw a little bit of it last season. They obviously still got Scary Terry there, who I hate playing against. But they're slowly but surely improving. And since Snyder left, players who they felt like they weren't playing for the team, they were just playing for themselves, are now playing for the team again.
Yes.
Even the fan base, and I have a lot of friends who are Commanders fans, they feel that they're not contenders. They don't feel they're even close to wildcard level yet, but they do feel positive about the team and about supporting the team. And that, we talked about how the Chargers fans just don't get into the games, don't get behind the teams. I think the Commanders fans this season will very much get behind the team, even at that terrible, terrible pitch, which hopefully, because I did see rumours of a new stadium being flaunted the last couple of weeks. If they can get out of that stadium, get a new stadium built, they'll be contending for the division within a couple of years. But right now, they're third place. Second place, it's the Cowboys. If they hadn't had the whole CeeDee Lamb drama affecting the preseason, I might have given them the nod over us. But Jerry Jones said at the end of last season, right, this is where we are. We are all in next year. That they haven't been all in on anything. They haven't signed any big names. The draft was poor. They gave CeeDee Lamb a contract after trying to haggle him down for no apparent reason for weeks and weeks. And it's just disrupted everything for them in pre-season. And now they still have the spectre hanging over them of how do we pay Dak? Because now that there's bigger contracts on the table, they're like, how do we meet that under the cap room? And it's Mike McCarthy, his head coach. Look, what do you think of Mike McCarthy?
I think he's very good now that he's left the Packers.
Mike McCarthy's entire thing when he was at Green Bay was, I don't know what to do in this situation. Aaron, can you just run about and do something? Thanks. And you know what? I think at times Mike McCarthy in Dallas is, I'm not sure what to do in this situation. Dak, can you just run about and do something? And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And this is why there's just the running back situation as well. Obviously, they lost Pollard. They brought Zeke back. They brought Zeke back after that season he had at the Patriots. and after like getting rid of him because they felt like his legs were gone, his knees were gone, and he wasn't that power back anymore.
Yeah.
And then he brought back in a big 1 year contract. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Okay, they're not strong at running back. They have the best wide receiver in the division, very possibly one of the top 3 in the league, and they have a good quarterback. Okay, he throws a lot of interceptions, but they have a good quarterback. They have a slightly upgraded version of Jameis Winston, and that for me is enough to take them to second.
Yes.
And then you go to the most complete team in football. You look at the team that says got a solid tight end. It's gone out and signed Saquon Barkley. It has arguably one of the highest scoring quarterbacks in the game. It has 2 elite wide receivers, and they just brought in a third one from the Commanders and Jahan Dotson to run the slot. Everything about that Philly offense is high powered. Yes, we lost Kels, and that showed last season, but I don't think it's going to affect the Philly special so much this year. I think defensively, we brought a lot of guys in on the draft last year from the Bulldogs who didn't quite hit their mark in the first season, but they're all candidates for a second season breakout. And I think defensively we will be much, much better this year. We addressed the big problem, which was the secondary. We went out and drafted for it and brought in free agents. It's a complete team. It's a team with very few weaknesses, and it's a team that a lot of teams will dread playing this year, and that could easily win 13 games. So, yeah, Eagles to win that division. And now over to you two to try and put that down.
Head coach.
Sorry?
Except that
I want to address this because a few people brought this up. It's the whole Sirianni Hurts thing with the head coach. And Andy and I spoke about this in the Eagles preseason discussion. They brought in a new offensive head coach and a defensive head coach, and those two have provided a kind of bridge between Hurts and Sirianni. Hurts, I think they probably sat down at some point in the summer, and Sirianni said to him, "Look, you have the big contract. You are our guy for the next 5 years. Yeah, you'll be here as long as you want to be here. Just you don't need to play hero ball. You have weapons everywhere. Just focus on getting those short yardage downs, because too often he just went, you know what, AJ's up there, I'll lunch it." And I think, he's still a young quarterback. This is only his 4th season. I think the hand on the shoulder, especially from the new offensive coordinator, will be enough to say, in these situations, I will look around, and if I don't see anything within a couple of seasons, I'll start moving. Because he did, for a very mobile quarterback, he did spend a lot of time sitting in the pocket last season when he should have been moving. And I felt very Carson Wentz to me. And I'm kind of glad that that kind of hand on the shoulder approach will make him a better QB this season.
Right, so Luke, over to you for your ranking of the NFC East.
Isn't it really interesting to hear that, actually? I was going to actually just joke with Steve that the Eagles finished last just to see his face, actually. But even I couldn't do that to you, mate, to be honest. No, I see the
I'm
Eagles...
just going to point out the NFC North is still to come, Mr. Campbell.
Exactly. I'm not stupid, Well, no, that's No, I think the Eagles win. I think the Cowboys are second, and I think it might be closer than you think, because the Cowboys aren't as bad as people make out, but they're, and I think their play generally has been pretty good, and it'll be interesting to see, but I think the Eagles will probably have enough to see them off. But I think both make the playoffs. The Commanders, now this is a ultimate hot take. I still think that they won't have enough to finish third. I think they finish bottom, and I think the Giants pip them to third place. But I think both teams have a losing record. I just don't see the Giants doing much this year at all. But I think the Commanders are still in rebuild mode. They traded away Dotson. They've still got some really good players, but I expect them to trade away. They might even trade McLaurin away to get draft picks for next year. Who knows? But I mean, I would, if I was them, I would think about it. But it's when you're in a rebuild, you have to take these tough decisions, especially if you're not going to be competitive. It's what you have to do. If you're a good GM, it is what it is. But I think that's what it is. So I think it's Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Commanders.
Okay, I mean, I've gone with same as Steve. Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders, Giants. I think it will be the first time since 2004 season the back-to-back winner of the division. And for me, yeah, I think the Eagles will be fine, if not better, with Barkley in there. I do worry about the whole Kelsey thing. I think that's why they won't go on and win many playoff games. The Cowboys haven't really added, as we said before. If you're adding an aging Zeke Elliott and an aging Dalvin Cook for a team that got embarrassed in the wildcard round, that's not telling me they're going to go any further than that. And then Commanders Giants, I think both will be not great, but I have more faith in Jaden Daniels as a rookie than Daniel Jones, who's been there far too long. Now we'll move on to the NFC North, and we are going
to. I forgot they signed Dalvin Cook, so Jerry Jones really has gone all in.
Gone all in. If this was 2018, it'd be like the most amazing of off-season history. Getting Elliott back in, getting Dalvin Cook, it'd be the most amazing off-season. But it's not.
What a 1-2 punch that would be.
Oh, it'd be amazing. Even 3 years ago would be amazing because they still were productive.
Do you think Jerry Jones knows it's 2024? So I did see his interview the pre-season where he said, "I'm not getting another GM in because there's not another man on this earth that could be as good a GM as I am."
Well, that's the biggest lie I've heard on this podcast today.
Yeah.
Apart from the Eagles being the most complete team in football, because that is definitely not the case.
Said by a fan, right? I mean, that's the only thing that a fan could say. Yeah, we are the most complete team because you have to say it as a fan.
Yeah, of course. NFC North time. This is where we head with you first, Luke. Of course, your team Bears, and they've had a very interesting off-season.
So I am going to start from the bottom up in this one, actually, just out of interest. So
Bears and bottom then.
At the bottom, the Packers know that. I know. I just want to say the Packers one time at the bottom. I'd love it. It'd be brilliant. But it's not happening. But I think the Vikings are going to be absolutely tragic, and they will not be saying skull much, which is great. Love that. That's brilliant. I'm delighted with that. Sam Darnold is going to be the most tragic quarterback in the history of tragic quarterbacks, and that's saying something. They are going to suck.
Wasn't he your comeback player of the year prediction a couple of years ago?
Yes, he's not coming back. I think we can say that with some certainty. Although the Vikes are actually, the roster is actually in better shape, but Darnold's just not a good QB, so he is not going to do anything, and I think it's going to be bad for them. Interestingly, and this is the thing, because I was looking at the bookmakers' odds for who wins the NFC North, and it's closer than you think, actually. But in third place, I think that we actually pipped the Packers to third place because I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm going to say the Packers finish in third. The Bears narrowly pipped them to second place because we beat them head to head, and the Lions won the division. And the reason is I think that we finally beat our hoodoo over the Packers, and we beat them home and away. But then I've said differently on the season preview, but I just want to be optimistic. So Bears second. Come on, make the playoffs. Get in there.
Okay, I love that. I mean, I've gone for a similar one. I've gone for, actually, no, a lot different. I've gone for the same same first and fourth. I've gone for Lions winning it, and I think Vikings fourth. I think the Vikings actually will have a better season than people think, purely because of the Brian Flores defense. I think that will win in games. You've got Dallas Turner, who's going to be one of the contenders later on for Defensive Player of the Year. Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think that'll be a good defense. I know they lost, I actually forgot his name again, the guy who went to the Texans. But I think that team, we see Brian Flores' defense with the Dolphins and just how good it can be. So I think they'll still be a 7-win team, 6-win team, but I don't see them at all challenging for a playoff spot. Certainly not to win it. Comes as a surprise after a year ago I had them winning the whole NFC, which is looking back, one of my worst takes in NFL history. And then first place is the Lions. I just think that, Steve, you mentioned earlier about the most complete team in football. I think this is the most complete team in football. I just think pound for pound, everywhere you look, it's an amazing, amazing team, and I think they're, for me, a very easy pick to win that division. And then second and third, I'm going to give the Packers to edge out the Bears. I just think that I like a lot more. I think it's a very close one. I think both teams are very good, and I think they've both got equally good receiving rooms. I think tight ends probably better in the Bears, but I just think we haven't yet seen Keller Williams throw a pass in the NFL, and you just never know. As good as he looks, he could be amazing, but he could be terrible, especially in his first year, where a lot of quarterbacks, even best, have bad first years. So I think I can't really put them to finish anything up further than anything lower than second, anything higher than third, because I just feel like we haven't yet seen him throw a ball. And he's got all the promise in the world and talks a good game, but I just feel like at the moment we just don't know. He could have a tough first year. Could be a few teething problems. You never know. And it's also quite a tough division. So yeah, it's not the easiest one for a quarterback to do. But I do think that either this year or next year he'll be the first quarterback in Bears history to throw for 4,000 yards. I do think that will finally come to an end. And yeah, Packers second. I love their receiving room, and I think they'll get the second place locked in. Finally, over to Steve for your NFC North rankings.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm in agreement with Andy on this one. I completely agree that the Vikings are at the bottom. I think their running game has, since Dalvin Cook left, been non-existent. They still have Justin Jefferson, but who's throwing to him? It would have been the rookie, and then rookie got injured, and now it's Sam Darnold, who, I still think even with that, Justin Jefferson can get a 1,000-yard season, but I think it's going to be a lot more contested catches because he's just nowhere near as accurate. Third is going to be the Bears. And the reason I'm giving the Packers this over the Bears is pretty straightforward in that the time to develop your chemistry with your receivers is the important thing for quarterbacks. Now, Love's in his third year there. So a lot of the guys that are there, they were rookies last year or the rookies the year before. They've had that time, that practice, that understanding with the quarterback to know where that ball's going to go. They've had a couple of injuries. Christian Watson was injured, but he's coming back hopefully healthy this season. But you look down at, and they've got 2 or 3 guys there who are all kind of competing for that WR2 slot. I personally think Romeo Doubs is going to win it. But there's just 3 guys there who any one of them could be that second guy on the team. They've got Luke Musgrave at tight end, who I think is an excellent blocker and great pass catcher. And defensively, the Packers have never. What's his name? Who's the Clay Matthews? So when they had the kind of Clay Matthews-led defense, I thought they were kind of excellent, and he was that kind of known man. Since then, they've just had a defense that's just overall excellent without an outstanding guy in there, and I think that's what drives the team. So yeah, it's more a chemistry thing. I think. Luke and I have discussed this before. I think Caleb Williams has all the weapons there to succeed this year. He's got Swift at running back. He's got Allen and Moore, wide receiver. He's got Cole Kmet, who's the best tight end in that division. But it takes time to develop the chemistry with those players.
That's a statement. Sam Laporta.
Yeah, I think Cole Kmet's the best.
Sam Laporta over him, I think.
No, I love Sam Laporta. I really do. But I look at the two, and I look at which of them is thriving in a bad team. And the answer to that is Cole Kmet. Sam Laporta is brilliant, and Sam Laporta could, in a Lions team that's just steamrolling people, he looks great. But if you'd put Sam Laporta in that Bears offense last season, would he have been the same player? And the answer is no.
I reckon so. If Cole, I think he would have. I think he's just that good. I think he would succeed anywhere. I think
he could, to be honest.
Yeah, and then again, obviously, we go at the top of the division. It's the Lions. It's just that Dan Campbell, next man up, just keep pounding and destroying people and eating the kneecaps mentality that he has fed into all of those players, and they've all bought into it wholeheartedly. And last season, I think when he came in, they were like, "Who's this madman?" And then after like 6 or 7 games, they were like, "This guy's mentality, this guy's methodology works." And once your players buy into your approach, you've got a hell of a team. Very few head coaches can do that. Campbell absolutely has that going. And obviously in Amon-Ra St. Brown, they have just an elite wide receiver. Jared Goff is a very solid quarterback. Everywhere you look around that offense, it's balanced. It's, even the guys who are like rookies are in the second or third year, it's balanced. And for me, they have Aiden Hutchinson, who is utterly terrifying. I can't imagine being an offensive player, one line player, with Aiden Hutchinson coming at you. He's just insane. So yeah, for me, that's the Lions to win that division.
Interesting. So we can now move on to the NFC South, which is easily the worst division in the entire league. And I'm going to go for what the worst team last year in the Carolina Panthers to finish bottom of that division. I think they'll be better, maybe a 6-win team, but nowhere near anything higher. I think the Saints are the most obvious 7-win team in the entire NFL. They'll finish third. And then I was torn. I found this actually one of the hardest divisions to call the winner of, because I think the Bucs and the Falcons, I think, are equally sort of equal sort of level. I think I love the Baker Mayfield transformation, but they have lost Dave Canales. And I know we mentioned it on the Bucs episode that our Bucs fan Murph, he isn't that annoyed about the loss of Canales, but I just think that it's more so what the Falcons and what they've done more than what the Bucs haven't done. And I just feel like the Falcons, they've added Kirk Cousins, who is way better quarterback than Desmond Ridder that they had last year. So I think the Falcons overall, when you've got obviously Kyle Pitts and Drake London there, who both haven't really fully done it yet, but I think they both have shown their talent in times. Getting Matthew Judon in as well, and it's a good team. And whilst Raheem Morris is untested, and I think that could be their downfall, where the Bucs have got a very solid head coach in Todd Bowles. I'm going to give the Falcons the edge purely because of the quarterback upgrade. So that is why I've gone for the NFC South as it is. But Luke, to you for your NFC South ranking.
Yeah, I'm more or less exactly the same as you. In fact, I'm exactly the same as you. I think the Falcons have some proper talent there, and I think that they are almost a shoe-in to win the NFC South. I think the Bucs are a half-decent team, but I don't think they're going to challenge the Falcons if Kirk Cousins could stay healthy, obviously. But if he does, then he's always delivered. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't now. I think the Bucs are a solid second-place team. And I think I agree with you. I think the Saints are nailed on for 7 wins, to be honest. I think that's so obvious. And I think the Panthers, again, improve a little bit. They can't possibly stink as bad as last year, but they've still got ways to go to really improve anything near challenging status. So, I think I'm kind of aligned with you on that one.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, what I don't like is often Steve's prediction. So, Steve, we'll go to you.
No change from either of you guys in 1 and 2. The Falcons have added beautifully in the summer. I don't know whether or not there's any kind of backstage kind of drama with the whole Michael Penix pick at 8.
Yeah.
I genuinely still think they could have improved on. They could have taken a defensive or offensive line player at that pick, and it would have been a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But obviously, they think he's the guy to further down the line. I personally think that's going to be a Trey Lance situation, but who am I to call? That's why I don't work in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So the Falcons will win the division. I agree. The Bucs are just solid enough. I don't want to give them too much credit because they beat us in the wild card last year. But Baker has kept that team consistent and motivated. When he went there, I think there was a lot of kind of like people raised their eyebrows, thinking this is the guy who the Browns just kicked out in favour of Deshaun Watson. This guy can't possibly kind of bring the kind of level that Brady brought to this team. And he didn't, but he did elevate them above what was expected. And he was consistent, and he is well liked, and he didn't affect the overall chemistry of the team, which was important. They still have Godwin and
Mike Evans.
Mike Evans, wide receiver. I still don't know who their tight end is going to be this year, but I think Cade Otton's probably going to end up as the number 1 guy there. But yeah, and the running backs are serviceable. They've got Rashad White there, who I like. I picked up in a few fantasy leagues. I think he's a good, solid young back. But again, to me, the Bucs lack depth to make any kind of real run in the division. Defensively, they are average. Average is a good phrase for it. And I'll move down then to 3rd and 4th, and I will actually go the opposite of you guys. I am taking the Saints to finish last.
Oh, wow.
And the Panthers to move up to 3rd. I think this is the year where Bryce Young, maybe not so much that he's had a lot of quality added to the team, but I think he's had a lot more time to work and develop the chemistry with the guys who are there. And I think that's been a big part of their off season. And I think when you've got that, people forget he is the number one. He was the number one overall pick. It's not as though he was, he's a bust because of a lack of talent. He was a bust because he just hadn't integrated into a poor team. I think this season he'll improve a lot. I think the Panthers could get 6 or 7 wins. I don't think the Saints will get that. There's nothing about the Saints that we talked earlier about how certain teams, when you go and play them or when they come to play you, there's a certain fear about them, certain players, certain everything. There is not a single thing to be afraid of in that Saints team. There is probably not an awful lot to be afraid of that Panthers team either. But I don't know. The Eagles have a terrible record when we go down and play the Saints. But if we went and played them this season, I'd be confident of a win. That's just a very poor team. So yes, the Panthers will sneak third with 7 wins, whilst the Saints will get 6 and finish bottom.
Interesting. So we will head to the final division in the NFL, which is the NFC West, formerly the best division in the league, not so much now. Back with you, Steve, for your NFC West rankings.
Okay, so is there anyone here, before we even start, isn't going to take the Niners to win this division?
I'm going to give the Cardinals to win.
Nope. Okay, cool. So that pretty much, that means that debate isn't really necessary. We know the Niners are the best team in the division. We know the Niners are one of the top 3 teams in the NFC, one of the top 5 teams in the league. There's just no doubt whatsoever that they are going to destroy that division. It's all about who finishes second for me and who gets the wild card, because I think a wild card comes out of this division. Now, it's a tough one. It's definitely not the Cardinals. That's what I'll say. I do think adding Marvin Harrison is he was a great draft pick. He was the obvious draft pick. He's a genuine natural talent there. But Kyler isn't showing his number 1 pick status much these days, especially since he got that big contract. They don't feel like a contender. They don't feel like a team to fear. So yeah, the Cardinals to me will finish bottom in that division. Now, third place, Seahawks. I think offensively, they still have Lockett and Metcalf, one of the best 1-2 combos in the league. They have a very good 1-2 combo at running back in Kenneth Walker and Zach. I want to say Charbonnet? No.
Yeah.
How do I pronounce it? It's Charbonnet, yeah. And at tight end, they've always been pretty consistent. I'm not sure who's playing there from this season. But defensively, they haven't been the same since the Legion of Boom. They've got good players in, but they don't have the kind of defensive unit that they had many seasons ago. And that leaves them very, very vulnerable, especially in the secondary. I didn't see anything in the off-season or free agency or the draft that addressed that. And for that, that and the fact I think the Rams have a very super high-powered offense, which relies totally on Matt Stafford staying fit. I think the Seahawks will finish third, and the Rams with a slightly fading Cooper Kupp, an insanely good Puka Nacua, and Kyron Williams last season stamping his authority all over that running back role, and Stafford just leading the troops. There's enough there for them for the Rams to not just finish second, but actually pull a wild card out of this, probably with, I'd say, about 10 wins.
Yeah, I agree. I think Rams will be good. I think as long as you've got Sean McVay, you're going to win a lot of games. Luke, to you for your NFC West rankings.
Well, isn't it interesting though? Because outside of the Niners, obviously, the disaster permitting, they're obviously going to finish first. But it's really interesting. What are the Rams after Aaron Donald goes? What are they? Are they still as good? I'm actually going to be controversial here. I think the Seahawks finish second. I think the Rams are going to really miss him.
Ooh.
And I really, although the Rams did a lot of good stuff last year, I have concerns over Matt Stafford. I do wonder if he's going to be the same player. He's not getting any younger. He's had well-documented injury problems, particularly with his elbow. And I do wonder if he's going to be as good again this year. And you might see that decline. And that's behind what I think, in the combination of that and missing Donald on defence is enough for me to think that they go into third place. But I do think that they have an outside chance of making the playoffs because they'll still be decent. Do you know what I mean? But I think the Seahawks I think finishing second place. I think the Rams are third and the Cardinals are fourth. And I think it's really interesting. The Cardinals, again, will improve. Obviously, they'll have Kyler Murray back. They've got a much improved wide receiver core, with drafting Harrison and stuff like that. So I think that, what you're seeing, I think is overall better. Overall better. But maybe not enough to stop finishing last. But I do think this division outside of the Niners might be more competitive than you think.
Yeah, it just takes one injury. We saw with the Niners a few years ago when he made the Super Bowl. What happened the following year? Everyone on that team seemed to get injured. And I think that, whilst they are, mentioned before about complete teams, I think they're definitely in that conversation. They've got an amazing coaching staff, whilst I think he's a bit of a bottler when it comes to big games. But Shanahan is an amazing head coach, and he would always win them 13, 14 games. Probably actually the best regular season head coach in the league. I think if you want a team to win you 14 games in the regular season, I take him over Andy Reid. I take him over Sean McVay. But in the playoffs, give me Reid, give me McVay, because they know how to get the job done in the big spots. So for me, I still have the Niners winning it. I think for what I just mentioned just then, I've got the Rams finishing second. I think McVay is a fantastic head coach. I think even leading, they've got two rookies in Verse and Frisk are going to be really good in my opinion. So I think they'll be fine without Donald. I think whilst they may not win Super Bowls without him, but I think they'll certainly be a team that will certainly be in contention for playoff spots. But also with the Stafford there, I think he's now fully healthy again. He had a good year last year. Cup's apparently looking really good, albeit can't really tell too much from training camp. But I think if you could get Cup back to some sort of level, Puka Nakua's there as well. Kieran Williams, they brought in Blake Corum, the running back. I forget who the tight end is, but I think overall, from defense to offense, it's actually a really underrated team. And I do feel like they could be a little bit of a dark horse for the season. I really do. And I think they could certainly be a team that makes at least a title game. I think they've got all the potentials in the world to do that. And then Seahawks said, I think as long as you've got DK Metcalf, you're going to be fine. I think they're a 7-8 win team as well. They always have been the last few years. I just feel like Geno Smith is very average, but I think he'll do enough of a job. You've got Kenneth Walker there as well. On defense, I've just forgotten the guy's name, but they've got an amazing defensive lineman there. I think the Cardinals, I think they're going to be improved. I think they're going to be like the Panthers, a 6-7 win team, much improved than last year. I think Connor is the most underrated back in the whole league. I think he gets every year lots of production. No one ever talks about him, apart from that 1 year with the Steelers. And I do feel like Harrison's going to really go off. I think Murray, again, a bit disaffected. I think he's going to have a good year. And I will say as well, they're going to be the first team I see lose to the Dolphins in person. I'm seeing them play Dolphins in Miami, and it's going to finally be the game where I end this long streak of seeing us lose games 0-5. This will be the one where I will see us win a game live. And I'm hoping that, I'm in Hard Rock, sat there in my seat, 10 p.m. UK time, whatever time it is in the US, finally seeing my team win. But
Davies, the Dolphins destroyer.
If we lose this game, I am the ultimate curse. So I think for me, it's given me a good week, spending the whole week there. I saw more of the Keys more than Miami last time, so I'm looking forward to actually seeing Miami. Looking forward to doing all that. But I do think the Cardinals will finish bottom, and they will be a team that I see lose to us in person. Now we are going to head to an end of the part 1. We are going to still record, but we're going to record part 2 in the same recording, but it will be done in a 2-parter. So we've done all 8 divisions. When you hear us in part 2, you're going to hear all the rest of our predictions, including first overall pick next year, who the wildcard teams are, defensive player of the year, rookie of the year, and all the rest coming up in part 2. So I hope you enjoyed part 1, and let us know in the comments your thoughts on the divisions, who you'd have in 8 division rankings. But we'll see you guys in part 2. Take care.
Bye.